Hello everyone, so it is that we meet again for another 5-minute Bible study, today through Exodus chapter 33. You can download the free PDF on our website, there's a link down in the description. So here's the PDF popping up on your screen right now. Let's get into our questions. When did these events happen? The Exodus, or when the children of Israel got out of slavery in Egypt, that would have occurred about 1491 BC. The events of Exodus chapter 33 specifically happened about 4 months after that. Our characters for this chapter, we've already been very well introduced to all of them, so I'm not going to take a lot of time here. Our first one is God. The next one is Moses. God and Moses have been having a conversation up on Mount Sinai. God's been giving Moses some instructions for the Israelites, or the Hebrews, who are our last main character. They were the people of God, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and God selected them to be his special people, but unfortunately they didn't always honor God as well as they should have. So then finally, on this page, we've got our where section. Where did these events take place? The children of Israel are camped around Mount Sinai at this point, and you can see Mount Sinai at the bottom of the map. So if you remember in the last chapter, chapter 32, we have just left off with the great sin of the Israelites in making the golden calf. Moses was up on the mountain talking to God. The Israelites decided they were going to worship an idol instead of the true God, and God's pretty angry with them at this point. So that's where we're picking up our first section, verses 1 through 6. God commands the Israelites to leave Mount Sinai. So God told the Israelites to break camp at Sinai and to head towards Canaan. God said that he would send an angel ahead of them to lead them to Canaan, but that his presence was not going to go with them because of their disobedience with the golden calf. God was so angry with the Hebrews, in fact, that he said that he would consume them if they entered his presence. After hearing this news, the Israelites were sad. They mourned the situation of not having God with them and, quote, stripped themselves of their ornaments in a sign of repentance. This next section is kind of a breakaway from the narrative, it seems like. Moses meets God at the tent, verses 7 through 11. So these verses tell us how Moses used to talk with God at a special tent that he pitched outside of the camp of Israel. Moses set up this tent, quote, far off from the camp, which he called the tent of meeting. Now, it appears the tabernacle is sometimes called the tent of meeting. However, this seemed to be another location, another tent that was erected before the tabernacle was ever built. Coming back from this aside now, we jump back into our story of the children of Israel breaking camp. Moses intercedes for the Israelites in verses 12 through 17. So Moses went to the Lord and he begged the Lord not to depart from the people. And he asked God to dwell with the people as they went to Canaan and as they entered the land. God, being gracious, he granted Moses' request and he reassured him that his presence would go with the people. So the last section of this chapter is really interesting. Verses 18 through 23, Moses sees God's veiled glory. So having received God's promise and reassurance that he was going to go with the people, Moses asked to see God's glory. He wanted to see God more clearly, evidently. And interestingly, God agreed to this. He told Moses that he would not be able to reveal his face to Moses because viewing the face of God would kill a human being. However, God would put Moses into the cleft of a rock and cover him with his hand as he passed by. So God did this, and Moses was able to see God's back, but he did not see his face. And so that is Exodus chapter 33. Now let's finish off with our application. Moses knew that the only thing that made him and the Israelite people special was the presence of God dwelling among them. He told God, quote, "Is it not in your going with us so that we are distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the face of the earth?" Moses' identity and his hope for the future was based on his relationship with God and the people's relationship with God. Question for us is, where do we find our identity? The one thing that makes us special as human beings and gives us hope for the future is the abiding presence of God and his Spirit dwelling within us.